Our running back free agency preview is behind us. We are now turning our attention to the wide receivers, and that means let's break down the top 5 or 6 guys into tiers here. It's not an overly deep class, especially for dynasty purposes. So we have 3 tiers only. Let's just start at the bottom. Tier 3 is uninspiring. I think that is the word to really frame this. These guys are going to be NFL wide receiver 2s and 3s, but for dynasty and fantasy, they're wide receiver 3s, maybe even wide receiver 4s. In this tier, it's going to be DJ Chark, Allen Lazard, Corey Davis, if he ends up getting cut, Odell Beckham Jr., Paris Campbell. Basically, it's guys that have flash talent in the NFL, or in OBJ's case, been superstars. So if I can trade anybody on this list for a 3rd round pick, that is the price. Off my team immediately. No questions asked. Do I think you're going to get that? Probably not. If it's post-free agency, you might, but there's not going to be a ton of other value there. So tier 3, uninspiring, kind of just dynasty sells across the board. Now to tier 2. This is, again, a smaller tier, but I think at least semi-interesting for fantasy and dynasty purposes. For me, it's Juju Smith-Schuster, and it is Michael Thomas. These 2 players I think are good, like actual good NFL wide receivers, but they have issues, right? Juju has not lived up to the hype that he basically forced on himself his first couple of years in the league. Juju just had a very mediocre season with the Kansas City Chiefs, and I don't know if we see Juju of old ever again. He's just not the same guy. He's not the same player. Can Juju Smith-Schuster be a team's 2nd best wide receiver? Absolutely. I think that's what he is, right? But I don't think he has the ability to be an alpha. He does not have the ability to be a true 1. I don't know if I'm buying still for the sole reason of where does he go that he really develops into a traditional wide receiver 2 in fantasy. If I can sell him for a late 2nd, maybe in the league you give him in like a 3rd and you get a mid-2nd, great. I think that's fine. I'm selling Juju. I don't really care where he lands. Now, the next name on this list, Michael Thomas. It's been a very long, 3-4 just injury-riddled seasons. Michael Thomas played 3 games. He was a wide receiver 1 in points per game. I still think Michael Thomas is a very good wide receiver, but, his best days are behind him. There's no other way to phrase that, right? We know what Michael Thomas is. He's probably going to get hurt. But if you're looking at where Michael Thomas could land to maximize those 6 to 10 games he's actually healthy, I think there's a few good landing spots, right? The teams he's linked to consistently right now. The Chicago Bears, right? They have a desperate need for a true 1. That's what Michael Thomas is, but, the peak Michael Thomas, that's behind him, and the injuries have taken away so much, so who knows? And then the Bills and the Chiefs, right? 2 teams that could use him in different ways. The Chiefs need a true wide receiver 1. That would be Michael Thomas. The Bills need a true wide receiver 2. That would also be Michael Thomas. Both of these situations, I'm very, very happy if he lands there. And I'm happy to take a flyer on him pre-free agency while his value is still just complete trash. I'm going to go send a 3rd because these shouldn't cost much more. But what he can bring to a contender specifically is a lot of untapped upside. You're going to go and flip a dart throw for a guy that, if healthy, can be a top 15 wide receiver still. And to close us out at tier 1, we have 1.5 players. In tier 1, we have Jakobi Meyers. And then the half player, is if he gets cut, we have Keenan Allen, right? Keenan Allen, he's a potential cap casualty, but he's a wide receiver 1. I don't care where he goes after he gets cut. Maybe it's Kansas City, maybe it's Chicago, maybe it's the Bills, right? Those are the teams that keep being tied to every top wide receiver. He's going to be a wide receiver 1 basically anywhere he goes. He's going to put up massive fantasy numbers still. I don't think he's washed. This would just be for cap's sake, not for skill's sake. And now Jakobi Meyers. Jakobi Meyers is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL, and I think being on the Patriots has severely handicapped what we think of him and what his fantasy value could and should be. Jakobi Meyers, in my eyes, can be a very, very good wide receiver 2 in the NFL and has the capability to be a top 20 fantasy wide receiver for the next 4 to 5 seasons. He has the ability to basically escape New England and find a high-volume offense with a quarterback that isn't bad, right? That isn't Mac Jones. So you're going to take one of the better route runners and hopefully stick him in an offense that, 1, wants to pass the ball, and 2, has a quarterback capable of doing it. Where is that available? The Houston Texans. They have been continually linked to Jakobi Meyers, and say they get CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, he immediately, I think, becomes the wide receiver one there because Brandon Cooks is likely getting cut or traded. You also have the New England Patriots. To me, this is worst case scenario just because we saw what he can do in that offense, and it's not inspiring, and it's probably because the offense itself is just bad, not Jakobi Meyers. And then the other two here are maybe not QB upgrades, but I think offensive upgrades. And that would be the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. Both of those teams have question marks at quarterback, right? I like Justin Fields. I love Justin Fields. I don't know if he's an elite passer right now. Could Jakobi Meyers unlock that? Absolutely, right? He brings another dimension to that offense, and that could be, right, a catalyst to just increase passing volume in the offense as a whole. So Jakobi Meyers would be interesting in Chicago, although I don't know if it's a massive bump for his dynasty value. Now, the Green Bay Packers on the other side, he just makes a ton of sense in Green Bay for the sole reason of they don't have an elite route running option underneath. They just don't, right? Christian Watson, we know what he is. He can burn, and he can get open deep basically whenever he wants. Romeo Doubs is another good outside threat, but you're not going to move him into the slot. Jakobi Meyers in the slot makes a ton of sense, whether it's with Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love. He could find himself seeing 22 to 25% of the targets there and be in a pretty solid offense, right? If it's Aaron Rodgers, it's a great offense. If it's Jordan Love, it could be average to good. So there's a couple of ways that could go. I am trading for Jakobi Meyers in every single league. I recently just traded for him. You can go give up a mid-second, and I think that will look like a massive discount come the end of 2023. All right, guys, that is all I have for you. Again, if you like what we're doing, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out the YouTube memberships for extra videos, extra content, all that kind of stuff. As always, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.